Hello and welcome to this first episode of the Gentle Business Space podcast. I'm really excited to share this. This podcast is for other sensitive female business owners who want to build and grow their business in a more sustainable and easeful way. In many ways, this was myself and my own journey. I'll be sharing a little bit more about that journey today. But just to introduce myself briefly, I'm Fabi. I'm the founder of the Gentle Business Space, and my own background is within the social care sector, as well as being a yoga teacher, and now working as sharing my business and my support as a virtual assistant, tech support guide, as well as a coach. And in this space, and especially within this podcast, I want to be sharing reflections and insights as well as gentle guidance to help you create a business that feels really aligned and spacious and supportive of your own life and your own energy, so that you can grow your heart-centered, really passionate business in a way that's sustainable, in a way that doesn't lead to burnout, because I know that happens a lot. And it happened to myself as well, which I'll be sharing a little bit about. So this is really an invitation for you to really find what really works for you, to be curious, to be open, and to re-invite that gentleness and kindness, so we can move away from that very harsh way of working and growing a business where we feel like we have to do everything all the time. So how did I come to that space myself? As I briefly mentioned, I have a background in social care, and that was where I kind of started out. And from there, I moved on into teaching yoga because I was looking for something to take care of myself, to help my busy mind. So I practiced myself and then went into teaching yoga myself. So through that, I also connected, of course, to a lot of other yoga teachers, a lot of other people in the wellbeing space. But what happened very quickly was I started going through the burnout cycles without really realizing at the time. But it was a lot of pushing, really wanting to make this work, becoming self-employed as a yoga teacher, to then crashing and crying and being devastated that things aren't working out. And then pausing for a moment, maybe thinking about giving up, and then deciding, oh, actually, no, I'm gonna try it again. And then pushing really, really hard again, because if I only work harder, if I only follow all the advice that I get from the outside, surely at some point it has to work out. If I only do what everyone else is doing, at some point it needs to work out. So I was kind of stuck in that cycle of pushing really, really hard, not getting the results of the work that I put in, and then crashing and wanting to give up, feeling really, really, really terrible and hopeless and just devastated, to the point where you kind of ask yourself, why am I doing this when I feel this awful? But I was still determined, and I wanted to find a different way. And I think this is really, looking back, a very pivotal point, because it helped me, guide me to explore different paths, of exploring different ways that are actually much more aligned with who I am. And that allowed me to grow my business in a way that felt right to me and much more sustainable. So I've come a long way from that point. And a huge part that changed is, first of all, noticing what was going on and knowing that I needed support, because the online space can also be very lonely. So I did get support from a lovely coach, and I've learned much more about trauma-informed work. So I've started to explore this more, and I did more training. First for myself, and then I did some more restorative trauma-informed training, but really inviting that trauma-informed approach, which, although working with clients in a trauma-informed way through my social care work, I hadn't used for myself, and to bring that same kindness and space and openness to myself. So it really was really great exploring this, and it made such a difference learning more about my nervous system, the way I work, what causes me stress, what helps me to regulate, noticing when I'm dysregulated, so when I'm more in that anxious, overwhelmed space, and knowing how to take care of myself. So exploring this over a few years really made such a difference of how I also turned up in my work. And I'm so grateful for going through that path and that learning how to support myself. And it's something I bring into my work as well now. So it makes such a difference of how I approach myself, but then also how I work with my clients. So any work I put out, I do try to always bring that nervous system friendly, understanding approach, moving away from being so harsh on ourselves and coming back to that gentler space. And it's quite funny really, because when I was teaching yoga, one of the main words, if anyone listening has come to my yoga classes in the past, I would use the word gentle so often, so often. It was my go-to word. And ultimately, when thinking about what podcast am I going to share, and I think in the core of me, it's about being gentle with ourselves, because we tend to be so harsh, have such high expectations on ourselves, as well as all the outside pressure. I think we need a little bit of gentleness in our lives. So I just had to go into the space of gentle business space. So that was my path through yoga, and I loved it, and I went more into coaching, which I also loved, but I could also sense there was some misalignment, and I think that happens very often, and I think it's another route towards burnout, when we're trying to push something that we think we need to do, that we think we have to work a certain way in order to help others. And I think that was a very pivotal point for me again, because I wanted to help others, and I thought this was the only way, until I realized, no, actually I can follow my strength, because otherwise there's misalignment, and when there's misalignment, we become resentful, we don't really show up for our work, because deep down maybe we don't actually want to do this. And I think we don't quite, well, it can lead to burnout again, can't it? So if we're working on something that isn't really truly us and causes us stress and overwhelm at this stage of life, that might change later, it's great to reflect, and maybe it's time to let these things go. And maybe we can shift and pivot and find something else that aligns with our strength and our capacity at the time. And that's what I did. So it was really nothing intentional, but through running my own yoga business, I was aware of all the kind of tech behind it, and all the setup and all the technology behind it. And I always really enjoyed it. I love exploring new platforms. I love setting up new courses and emails and lead magnets and all of those kind of things. Always really enjoyed that, and it was always kind of a natural strength of mine. And through coincidence and someone needing a fellow coach, needing coach and teacher trainer, needing support, I kind of got into that space of virtual assistant work, which wasn't planned, but it felt right at the time. It worked with my strength. It allowed me, especially as a sensitive person, to work in my own time, to not always be forward and present. So I allowed myself to follow that, which isn't always easy, to let go a little bit more of the yoga world, which I didn't initially, actually. I did both. But I started to follow that, and it's kind of that lovely analogy what also my coach always said was about kind of following the breadcrumbs of what brings you joy, what feels right. And again, I think that's such a huge part of avoiding burnout, when we allow ourselves to follow our strength, to follow what we're naturally good at, what comes easily to me, easily to you. and not forcing ourselves to do something that maybe doesn't actually feel aligned just because everyone else is doing it. And again, that can change over time. So now again, things have shifted and I'm moving more into the coaching space again because that feels right. But still, so that's how I got actually into the virtual assistant space of that kind of support. I've been doing that for quite a while now, a couple of years, 2.5 years now, I think. And really, really enjoy it. And I have such lovely clients, and they're all within the yoga, coaching, wellbeing space. But all of my clients really with that intention of working in a more sustainable way. And I really, really love that. And I love sharing that more. And it's not coming in as an expert. It's coming in as part of the conversation of sharing more ways of working sustainably. And I've learned so much through that time as well, through supporting others, of seeing how they can work more sustainably and bringing in systems and platforms and making it easy and accessible, because I know tech and systems and all of that can feel so scary and overwhelming, and can often be this kind of space of stopping us to move forward. So really this phase of life, I'm bringing all these different experiences together of setting up tech and getting it done for you so you don't have to deal with it, but also taking it further of really bringing those different pieces together. For me, that comes back to finding clarity of what works for you and what doesn't, your strength, your vision, your values, working in a really aligned way, especially as a sensitive person. Because what works for other people might not work for you, and that's absolutely fine. So finding a way of working that really works for you. So that's that first clarity part, as well as knowing how to support yourself and how to work in a way that really works for you. And then coming in with systems, because we do that very often quite early. But we need systems for the really strong foundations, so we don't grow and grow and grow. But actually at the back end of things, we're really overwhelmed. So really finding systems that work for you. And that can be so simple things. It's just about putting things in place to making your work easier. It's creating your ideal work calendar. That's a big part for me, of finding ways of working that really work for you. Finding the right strategies to work. It might be for you 4 days a week, or maybe you like working 5 days a week, but less hours in a day. So really knowing that there isn't a one perfect way of doing things, where you can do things your way, and we can explore that together, find your ideal way of working and supporting yourself, and then looking at systems. And if you know where you're going, it's much easier to know what strategies or systems or platforms you might need to help you get there and to make it easier. And then with that, it's all these things that make then life easier, like passive automations and passive courses to really help your work structure, and email automations, all these kind of things. But they kind of come at that last stage. First, we get clear on what we really want. But I think when we have those foundations in place, that clarity, the structure, and then the systems, as well as the mindset support, because I know there's a lot of mindset around overworking, overgiving, people pleasing, that if we don't have all these things in place, it's very easy to fall into burnout and overwhelm. But when we gradually start working on all these different areas with support and gentle guidance, we can really grow something maybe slower but sustainably that supports you as well as your clients. Because I think often we focus too much on, not too much, but we put our main focus on our clients and really neglect our own needs. So I think if we can come back to our own needs, what do you need? Really building very strong foundations in a gentle way, and a way that supports your own nervous system. So it all comes back to awareness of what we really need. Then, we can build a business that's sustainable, that's supportive of your own needs. And that brings you joy again, because I know it can be so easy to get lost in kind of all this hard stuff, which there is when you run your own business. But if we have the right foundations in place and the right support, then it can be easier. So for me, it's all about reclaiming that ease, because you might have gotten lost in the overwhelm and the struggle, and it's so easy to do. So we want to reclaim that ease, finding a gentler way. And I hope that this podcast will be part of that conversation to help you find these little nuggets that help you move into that gentler space, in finding ways to do it your way and moving more into that compassionate space of working and sharing what you're passionate about so that you don't burn out. I will leave it here for our first episode. I hope it gave you a little bit of an insight of what to expect, a little bit about me and who I am and why I'm sharing this. And I'm looking forward to sharing more episodes and to connecting with you more through this podcast. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you again soon. Take care.